Seriously, Snoopy? Can you just... Good. It's cold, so let's get this done. Life is an inevitable gloom that even art cannot defend. So let's talk about Johnny Depp films. Now, I had to be specific about this list because, of course, I'm rounding it down to 7. 7 is a very important number. So, what do we have? I want to break it down in the category of some of his really bad ones, some of his really good ones, and some of them that I just would like to rewatch, because, of course, this is still a list that I have to watch. So, I've mixed up the list a little. I've brought everyone's family-friendly version of Johnny Depp to my laptop, because Netflix is convenient, and watched the 2005 film Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, directed by Tim Burton. I also watched the animated film that he did in, I think it was maybe 2008, called Rango. I'd never seen this one before, but I had it on DVD. I don't know why. I think my brother had bought it. It came in an orange case, which was really unique, so I figured, hey, look, I've never seen it. Johnny Depp's in it. I've heard it's really good. So I figured, screw it, I'll put it on, even though it wasn't on my list originally. I then continued to watch another Tim Burton film. It's going to be a trend here. One further down the line, darker, in fact, with vampires and Eva Green. I believe they call it Dark Shadows. And then I continued to watch another film on Netflix that, oh, thank God it was on Netflix. I wouldn't want to have to buy this piece of shit. Mordecai, a 2015 detective crime film. It's meant to be a comedy as well, but, well, we'll get into that. Last but not least, actually, I don't even know why I said last but not least. This list still keeps going. We, of course, have another Tim Burton film. This one's more of a cult classic, something I really like, but don't always see the charm in. But I figured, hey, I'll rewatch it. I haven't seen it for probably a decade now. So, of course, I watched everyone's favourite Christmas Tim Burton film, Edward Scissorhands. Not the stop-motion animation film that he actually produced and didn't actually direct that everyone says is a Tim Burton film. Doesn't matter. This isn't a Tim Burton video. It's all about Johnny Depp. Second to last, we have a biopic that I figured, well, I really like it, and I'd like to actually see and contrast Johnny Depp's good performances from wacky, zany characters and actually someone who's real, who still is a wacky, zany character. So, of course, I watched another Tim Burton film, 1994's Ed Wood. And last but not least, a film I am yet to rewatch. I have not watched it since maybe 2014, the year my dad decided to buy the Blu-ray of it, because it's Johnny Depp, and it's an action-adventure film that everyone said was absolutely atrocious, yet they still decided to buy it. And they were like, oh, this was great. It's only a 2.5-hour-long adventure comedy film. It's great. Johnny Depp, oh, he's so well cast, isn't he? I don't exactly know what exactly my parents are getting at, or my brothers saying that this film is good, but that was the reason why I really wanted to do this list. That's because I want to conclude this list by watching none other than The Lone Ranger. Let's get the show on the road. How's it going, Snoopy? You good boy? You are. Cool. Do you like Johnny Depp films? You haven't seen them. Good boy. You know, I'd almost argue it's tiring to keep doing these videos, but I like the idea of watching 7 different films. I'm restricting it, yes, now down to 7. Kind of where I started, but not exactly. And it gives me a good balance, you know. I get to start with maybe some of this actor's really good films, and then go into their bad films and really kind of identify what exactly is wrong with them as an actor. Like, I'm not saying that the actors are always bad, I'm just saying that sometimes the directing is bad, or sometimes the script is terrible, or sometimes the acting is bad. It really depends. So with Johnny Depp, I'm like, this is someone who came in so big and was good for like maybe 2-3 straight decades, from the 80s all the way through to the earliest of the 2000s. And since then has just dropped and dropped and dropped so far that everything in his life has turned to turmoil and ruin. So, in talking about someone whose life has gone from turmoil and ruin to something even so happy and joyous, and ultimately creepy, we are talking about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This is a film, I believe, co-written by Tim Burton, adapted, of course, by from the source material, Royal Dahl, that guy, and it's weird. This film is fucking mental, and I don't know why it exists. Of course, I always thought it was some kind of a sequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but of course the original title for the book is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, so it makes more sense. I also do appreciate the original more. It's more colourful and creative. It has its dark side, yes, but it's not as creepy and fucking pathetic as this one. At least the Oompa Loompas are fun in the original. This one is just... I don't know if it's trying to be culturally insensitive, because I don't know. Also, I don't know what this film is striving for. So, let's get into why I classify Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as a 2.5-star film. Also, I think it's kind of the perfect day to film this, mostly because there's really no one home on a weekend. Weird. But also because the weather is terrible. You can't really tell. Like, it's windy, it's cold, but it has been raining for the past 3 days to the point that we had a hailstorm that kept coming off and on again yesterday. So I'm dating this video kind of. It's October, it's springtime. What the hell's going on? But then again, you know, Melbourne weather, global warming, all the fun stuff is happening. Seriously, Melbourne weather is fucking mental. So let's talk about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, of course, as I do with all my reviews and my review videos, I start off with pretty much my letterbox review if I haven't adapted that further or kind of rewritten it to better suit this video. Sometimes I just improv. So my review for this film, of course, is an astounding 2.5 stars out of 5. So always out of 5. And my quote, because I like finding quotes that could be taken out of context or could just be random. Some films just don't have good one-liners or don't have a good random line that just sticks to me and makes me think, yeah, you know what, I'd like to write that down and put in my review. It's not going to convince people to watch the film. It might. I don't really know why I do it. It's just a gimmick. But this line, of course, is, you can put her in a county fair. Yeah, that's correct. That's actually what I wrote down, because that's actually what they said. I do hope this wind isn't too much of a disturbance, of course. This mic is usually pretty good for that kind of a area. Isn't that right, Snoopy? He looks like he wants to go inside, but he has a door. I don't understand. It's kind of confusing. He's not locked out. So, Willy Wonka makes the biggest chocolate factory, and it's made of bland and grey concrete. That's a great way to start your film. Outside of the opening, that's just pure CGI chocolate thing, because apparently that's what kids like. Watching CGI machines make CGI chocolate. Like, I guess I'd like the appeal more if it was made of, you know, practical stuff, especially because Tim Burton was so great at that in the 90s, but I guess because he has digital technology now, he doesn't need to do anything. Hell, he doesn't even need to be on set anymore, most likely. I don't know if that's the thing, I'm just saying. He really doesn't need to be there anymore. So this is one of those many films that I just kept commenting stuff because it's just barbaric. I do like this formula sometimes. It's kind of weird to pull it out of context, but still. So my next note was, given the fact that Charlie sleeps next to an open window, it's a hole in the roof, it's very obvious that this film takes place in Charlie's Wonka-deluded dream on the night that he dies, because it's winter and somehow everyone else is cold, but Charlie isn't, and he sleeps underneath a hole in the roof, which also doesn't make any sense. I guess it's meant to emphasize how he's poor, but, like, we get it. All of his grandparents sleep in one bed. They've only got one room. He stays upstairs. Like, why does... We get it. Is it meant to be him looking off into the distance at the chocolate factory? Because it's the opposite direction. It doesn't really make much sense. And this is a film by a guy who's really great at, you know, art design and production design. But I guess he just didn't do that in this film. Or maybe he did. The opening 25 minutes are too much of slow, and just slow everything, including the exposition. It's just pure exposition. This character does this. This character does this. You know that character on TV? Yeah, he must be like this. Thank you, Grandma or whoever, Grandpa, whatever the crap your name is, Mr. Negative Nancy Pants, who wants to just stereotype everyone so the kids don't have to really worry about that, because thinking is overrated. Also, the children in this film really look like all of their faces have been photoshopped, just digitally manipulated to make them look smoother and duller and paler, and I really see how he ended up doing Dark Shadows now. Makes you think. Outside of Charlie, of course, because he's Burton Joyce. He's the spark of light that'll fuel the fire that'll make the empire burn, or whatever the fuck that quote is. It's a good quote, but at the same time, like, this film was terrible. Not Star Wars, this film. The fact that the obvious character morals are presumed onto the audience, which is, you know, in the introduction of each child. Now, I get it, of course. The source material written for children, every single child has their stereotypical thing, which penetrates the moral of the story. Problem is, they do that instantaneously. Like, in your face. You have no wonder, it's just boring. You know, you don't give a shit about these characters. All you get is each different broom is just... the character gets fucked over, and it makes it look like Wonka is a weird creep who knows too much about these kids and just tries to punish them, and it just doesn't really pay off, because it's like, all this stuff should be like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of how you would rewrite this film, but if you're focusing all on Charlie, I guess it doesn't matter what the effects of the other characters are, because the other characters aren't important, right? Because they're just characters. It's a movie. Who cares? Look, chocolate, yay. I taste originality in the crevices of my teeth. I don't really know why I wrote that outside of the fact that this film has a really big fetish of teeth. Like, I get it that Wonka's backstory is that he used to have really big dentures, and that his dad was a dentist and he didn't like him eating chocolate and candy and stuff. Also, for some reason, he's played by Christopher Lee, and it's like, great, Christopher Lee's in another film. That's always a joy, but then it's like, okay... but Johnny Depp plays this creepy weirdo who has a weird laugh and a weird face and a weird smile and a terrible haircut. Is it meant to be unique? Because it's like, look, I get it, it's a Tim Burton world, but at the same time, you don't have to make him a creepy, sociopathic what-the-hell who likes to, I would say, in this case, kidnap children, because, I mean, they don't really stipulate that you have to bring the parents along when you think about it. It takes more than 35 minutes for Wonka to show up. Now, this is okay, you know, it's a long-ass film. And it's meant to be about Charlie, but at the same time, it takes you 35 minutes to introduce Charlie, the other children, get an idea of the world and everything about that world, introduce Charlie, Wonka, not visually on screen, but kind of vaguely there, for his backstory and Grandpa Joe's backstory, all before he actually ends up showing up. And when he does, it's just a molten explosion of plastic dummies playing a song and exploding in fire and stuff, and then Charlie's like, no, Wonka, I keep getting them confused, I'm sorry, and Wonka's just like, yay, let's do that again. It's like, I mean, I'm not going to compare this to Gene Wilder's version, I don't want to, because that's a great film, and just his portrayal of Wonka is just great, like, he's still crazy and kind of sadistic, but like, he does it with such a straight face, because he's Gene Wilder and can actually act really fucking well in this kind of a performance, whereas Johnny Depp is just like, he's a bumbling child who's just happy that people are going to die, probably, presumably, mostly. They get, well, not die, because it's a children's film, so they get horrifically, malformed and shit, so it's just ugly. Anyway, yeah, so by the time, he shows up, I'm unimpressed and overall just kind of creeped out. And I just don't want his face on the screen anymore. I'm sorry, I don't. Please, go away, Johnny Depp. You're creepy. Please. Go away. So the whole dark comedy aspect really doesn't work in this version. Like, take a good dark comedy, like Gremlins, which is also a holiday film. This is kind of meant to be a Christmas film, but I don't really know. I think all of Tim Burton's films are Christmas films, or at least the majority of them are, which is just kind of weird, I guess. Yeah, and just, I don't know, the comedy doesn't really work so much. Like, I didn't really laugh. I thought it was all just kind of creepy and awful, and I even remember watching this as a kid, and just not liking it, which is fair enough. It's not funny due to the poor comedic timing, which is terrible. And it's, rather awkward by way of addressing how obviously sociopathic Wonka is. That's fun. Like, I get it, he's a sociopath, but, like, He doesn't have to be a creepy sociopath. He could be like the Gene Wilder version, which again, you don't want to replicate the Gene Wilder version because there's a remake. You want to do something different. Yeah, okay, but don't make him this kind of creepy. There is creepy like Gene Wilder, who can be straight-faced and funny, but you know that behind that straight-faced and funny is something dark and sinister. Some kind of maybe a backstory-related thing. It doesn't matter, but you just know it's there, and it's looming, and it's creepy, and it's dark, and it's dreadful. But at the same time, no, this is just Johnny Depp. He just can look creepy, so let's just make him look creepy. With a bad haircut, and a terrible smile, and a terrible laugh. I want to keep cutting to a clip of that laugh, but I don't know if I want to. And lastly, of course, Wonka has PTSD, by the way, just in case you didn't realise that. So I guess that's a backstory we always needed to know, that he has PTSD. I haven't read the original book. If I have, I haven't read it since I was a child, which is fair enough, because it's not really meant for me to read right now. I mean, you probably could. It's probably one of those books that's like, for all ages. Either way, I gave this terrible, rotten egg of a film 2.5 stars. Yeah. Great. Now, on contrast, we have something more uplifting, more positive, more badass, and actually animated in the best way possible. No, I'm not going to talk about the goddamn fucking Oompa Loompas and their songs and how it's obvious that they're all planning the demise of the children. That's just obvious on the surface level stuff. I don't need to talk about that. It's just weird, okay? We get it. The characters mention about it. Oh, it's funny because they mentioned the fact that Wonka's obviously fucking these children over. So let's talk about Rango instead. Now, Rango is a film that came out in the late 2000s. I think it was 2008. I hope it... Or maybe it was 2010. I don't know, but it's a good film. To start off, I actually gave it 4 stars. What? Look at those stars. 4 of them out of 5. For an animated film? No, but animated films are for children. That's impossible. And to be honest, I didn't really write much about this film. It's really just on the list for fun, as I have pretty much clarified earlier. It's well acted, especially by Johnny Depp. Apparently they use a lot of mocap stuff as well, so it's just like you can get his little idiosyncrasies that he does in his movements, because he's very much a movement type actor, as well as, he could do the funny voice and the funny lines and whatever, but then he actually has this great movement aspect to himself, which he uses in a lot of his stuff, for example, Pirates of the Caribbean, and of course, they mocapped him to, so Rango kind of had that effect to it. It feels very much like Johnny Depp is just a giant fucking chameleon. So, yeah. The music also is terrific, and the visuals are extraordinary. Of course, they're helped in tangent with the one and the only Roger Deakins. Didn't forget his name. I remembered his face, and then I remembered his name. So I didn't forget. Johnny Depp's probably last good role. Oh, fuck. Yeah, I wrote that down. And I think it's a fair assessment, because you've got a good director behind him, you've got a good script, you've got a great character for him to portray. We all know Johnny Depp as this guy who plays wacky, zany, and characters who are characters. They bring life to the screen. So it's fun, and honestly, it's worth checking out. I didn't actually write down a quote for this film. That seems really strange to me. I'm going to check out my review and see what I wrote, because I'm certain that I have something. I mean, do I need to talk about the plot of this film? Rango is a lizard who is also an actor, kind of, and he ends up in an old west town and has to help them look for water. That's all I'm going to say, because it becomes this whole kind of like, you've got this political intrigue elements, and you've got these great characters, and you've just got a good, interesting, compelling story for kids and adults to enjoy. I'm going to strip this mystery and expose its private parts. Well, I'm not wrong. That is a great line. Cool. Let's move into a different angle and get a new stuff with a new film. Which one should I go with? I should go this way, but the floor is wet, so I don't care if it's more poetic if I go out that end, because it's cinema. I'm going this way. I kind of like grey clouds, Like, I like the different shades, and they're white and they're grey. It's obvious it's going to rain eventually again, but right now it's just kind of nice. It's like the calm before the storm, Anyway, let's talk about Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, this is a film directed by Gore Verbinski, of all people, which is kind of strange, but then we'll get into him later with, of course, our last film, which I'm still yet to rewatch, so we'll get there. And this is a film everyone loves, really. Like, to my knowledge, everyone loves, really. I was a huge fan of these films as a child. It was my thing. I'd keep watching them over and over. I loved seeing every single one of them. I liked the horror, I liked the fun, I liked the romance. I couldn't identify a single bad element of these films. I aspired to be both like the Will Turner type and also have the wacky zany elements of Johnny Depp. So it was interesting to rewatch this film. I've, of course, usually watched this probably... I used to watch it so much as a kid that I should have the whole entire plot in the back of my head, like, it should just know it off by heart, but really, it's long, and it's convoluted, and there's so much that happens, but really also there isn't. You know, I mean, you know the plot. Elizabeth Turner gets kidnapped by pirates that are also undead pirates. Oh, twist. Classic twist. And then, you know, Will Turner, who loves her, is like, yo, Jack Sparrow, Mr. Crazy Other Pirate Man, let's go find these pirates and save her. And hijinks ensue, of course, because classic Johnny Depp. Now, this is one of Johnny Depp's probably, maybe his most famous role, actually. It's definitely his most famous role, his most popular role, his best role. My quote, of course, the quotiest quote of quotes, is, what a ship is, what the Black Pearl really is freedom. It's a fucking boat, calm the hell down. Anyway, can you believe it? I gave this film 4.5 stars out of 5. What? Who said that? What? Parts of the Caribbean? It's getting windy right now. The storm is brewing. It's coming. Oh, it's coming back. I hope my tripod doesn't fall over. That'd be bad. Doesn't look like it. It's not shaking or anything. So, as the wind blows against my back, let's talk about how Johnny Depp is brilliant in this film. This is a role that made me, of course, love him as a child, idolize him in my own way. Not in a creepy way. He's an actor. I liked watching him because he was funky, he was cool, and I used to watch other Johnny Depp films because of this film. And this film is fun. It's consistently entertaining without boring you too much with the lore. You know, of course, if that stuff bothers you or bores you, depends on how they execute it. Some of it can be boring, dialogue, heavy exposition. But in this case, they kind of just, you know, they mention a place and they briefly, like, just do this and that. And, like, everything about it, more or less, is about backing up the character. Like the island that Jack was abandoned on by his pirate crew when they all decided to, you know, mutiny on him. And most of the other stuff, like the intro of why Will really likes Elizabeth, or the fact that Elizabeth is always curious about pirates, or the thing about the coin, like everything about it is set up in the first like few minutes, just through visuals alone, more or less, with slight detail of dialogue to keep the creepy and kind of feel of the film really to keep consistent, and it really works. Like, it really brings you into this film like, oh, Pirates of the Caribbean. It's not some kind of just a funny, whiny, fucking wacky adventure. It's also got some charm and heart and, you know, consciousness to it, and it really just is quite something of a spectacle in its own right. Now, of course, we can talk about the special effects. They, of course, hold up very well. And, I mean, so does the film, really. Like, you don't have to watch the sequels. If anything, I really just consider it a pretty decent trilogy that ends on a pretty, holy crap, there's so much stuff in this film, end note. Because obviously they set up a lot of stuff in the first film, like, you know, the Davy Jones's locker and all this kind of stuff, because it's just pirate talk. But then, of course, they're like, okay, well, this film is incredibly successful, let's make a sequel, and another sequel, and then it'll become a trilogy. That was totally planned from the beginning. We totally planned this. Totally. Anyway, so, of course, I'm not really going to talk about the second and third film. I think they're decent films. I'd probably maybe give them 3 or 3.5 stars. They're just fun, and they're dark, and it just kind of becomes a bit too busy. You know, it's not Pirates Adventures doing this and doing that. It's just, it has to do with this particular end of the world kind of plot. And it's just, ugh. It just becomes a trilogy, you know. Very 2000s of it. Very, very 2000s of it. I mean, come on, we've all seen The Matrix. It's just like that, except probably not as smart as The Matrix. Anyway. Where are we? So, of course, they're all entertaining blockbuster pirate films that have a Disney budget, so you expect that they're going to look pretty freaking good, especially with a good development of CGI technology. Like those damn skeleton dudes, ho. And then, of course, the second one, Davy Jones, ho, tentacles. Anyway, what is it? So, we're not going to talk about the fourth one. I didn't mind it when I watched it in the theaters because I just wanted another adventure with Johnny Depp. Turns out it was the last one I was going to really enjoy in my life. And, of course, I've, hesitated to watch it ever since. Maybe seen parts, but never the full fish. Yeah. I wrote some weird stuff. Anyway, during the final one, hopefully the final one, what is it called? Dead Men Tell No Tales? Which I thought was abysmal and terrible, and everyone in it was terrible, except for pretty much Jeffrey Rush. He was good. I like Scolario, but, like, yeah. This film was that film was terrible. But again, I wanted to walk out during the first 5 minutes of the video on screen because I'm like, oh my god, this is a dreadful nightmare. But I was forced to stay because someone else had bought the ticket for me, and they were also driving me home, which is relevant to the story. I'm getting really concerned for this wind, so let's hurry this up. I'm like, oh my god, that's all I wrote. What overall? Check this one out if you haven't. Hell, the trilogy isn't bad, but don't harm yourself with anything else in this franchise. Don't do it. What can I say about Johnny Depp? I didn't even write anything about Johnny Depp. It's kind of self-explanatory. He's great in the film. He encapsulates a character that's just meant to be a side character, like, of course, a main side character, and encapsulates him so well. Like, I don't know who the hell decided, he's like, okay, well, this character's kind of, like, we could play him, like, wacky and zany and, like, still have this kind of dark backstory and all this kind of other stuff. So who should we choose? None other than fucking Johnny Depp. And it's like, yeah, no, this works. This really, really works. And wholeheartedly, I still think it will always remain my favourite performance of his. It definitely encapsulates what he is best known for and can do the best. Like, he can do dramatic roles and stuff, and comedy roles even, but ones where he really is this character, like Rango, is just, it's really his niche. It's really what he's best at. So, of course, the next film, predictably, we'd be talking about, is where that kind of falls flat. Dark Shadows, another Tim Burton film. I don't have beef against Tim Burton. He, just like Johnny Depp, has gone downhill since the early 2000s. Of course, my quote, welcome back to the shadows. Ho ho, hey, yoo-hoo, ha, ho ha, he, ha. What the hell did I rate this? Oh, let's get that to the end. Oh. Okay, so another film that I watched in theaters, thought was pretty funny. Never really cared much for the source material because it was an old TV show. I never heard of it. And my dad was like, hey, look, it's Johnny Depp. He plays a vampire. Let's go watch it. I'm like, hey, cool, Johnny Depp. He plays a vampire. Let's go watch it. So, of course, my review from Letterboxd is the film is just about trying to show to your family that you prefer vanilla sex when, in fact, you prefer BDSM. Right? That's the whole point of this movie. Like, it's just Tim Burton being like, hey, no, I totally prefer BDSM, but I don't want to tell anyone that, so let's make a movie about it. This is a very strange film that they just dug out of, like, the fact that they used this source material, it's like the vampire version of Addams Family, and just becomes boring because everyone else in this film is boring. So I guess we'll just start it off with talking about Depp's performance. His acting is not too bad, honestly. He's pretty 2D in comparison to the regular 3D stuff that we're used to, for like the caricatures, the Rango or Jack Sparrow. Like, you can see that he's trying to pull off a more Nosferatu level vampire, but still kind of have his own, side to it. But it just isn't as compelling. Also, the script is boring as shit. Anyway, we'll get into the script later. So he just kind of does the same thing for the whole film, but I mean, he's not creepy, he's not boring, he has some funny elements, but that's just what the script sets up for him. Oh look, he's a vampire, so he's going to sleep like this, and he's a vampire, oh look, he's going to do that, and also he was in, like, the colony, so of course McDonald's is going to be a scary thing for him. All this other stuff, it's just like, Yay! Product placement. Anyway, so don't you just love boring scripts, like uninspiring and out of focus second acts, and yes, finales that don't make sense, and I kind of just, wait, what? This is where we're already here? What? Where the fuck did this come out from? Who pulled this out of their ass? So yes, this film is quite a charmer, isn't it? It's great. Love it. 10 out of 10. Now, this film, it slaps, it bangs, it's all right, I guess. Yeah. It has its amusing moments. Yeah, cool. Old vampire dude. He's like, yay, what? I'm out of a thingy, and now look at this shit. Opening 5 minutes. Terrible exposition. Didn't really need to happen. It could have been worse, but it was as bad as we probably could have gotten. It could have been so much better. And it was terrible. Oh my god, the opening is so fucking terrible. And it's my main grudge. Like, the exposition is terrible. It just adds all this stuff that you could have explored differently. Like, the Victoria's backstory thing would have been much cooler. Like, if we had, like, when she first sees the ghost, and it's like when it's the 1970s version of her, and it's like, hey, look, she's looking at a ghost, and the ghost looks like her. And it's like, what? Mind blown, until you know that, because of course the opening fucking part of the film just had her there. And just like, oof, she's dead now. And it just explains why I turned to a vampire. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Look, dude, you could have, like, done this later in the film, or just not done it at all. Imagine if the film was like, it just starts with him, like, it starts with Victoria getting to the house and whatever, and then boom, you know, she's got all this creepiness to her, and it's like, whatever, and then the ghost pops up, and it's like, and you kind of creeped out, and you're like, what's going on? Why is everyone so pale-faced? Why is this town full of weird people? And then, like, the ghost comes out of nowhere, and it's like, I look like you, also, he's coming, and then she fake falls into the ground, and you're like, oh my god, wait, what does that mean? And then, boom, vampire boy comes out of his goddamn coffin, and suddenly, it's a fucking comedy, and it's like, what? It's Johnny Depp, he's a vampire? What? Like, imagine how cool that would have been. That's the only part I could have really changed to make any... That's the only part that could have been good of the whole film, because the rest of it is still fucking terrible. Like, none of the scary moments are scary. I don't know if they're meant to be scary. Is this a horror film? I don't know. It's just a bad period drama with comedy and Johnny Depp, and it's like, what the fuck is going on here? So, like, the start of the film, of course, with Victoria, when she starts, like, she's on the train and stuff, and you've got good music and whatever. A bit of a long shot, which is a bit too long with the train. Anyway, the pacing, the editing, everything's great. It's like they didn't actually film the fucking actual start of the film and just started here and, like, this is where we're going to start it. And the company was like, the producers were like, wait, no, we don't know anything about his backstory. Why does he become a vampire? Who is this witch woman? We need to know this. Let's do it all in the first 5 minutes, otherwise people will be bored and confused and won't know what's going on. Then they'll just get bored and then they'll leave because they're like, oh no, I don't know what's happening. It's not like I could watch the rest of the movie and find out. Fucking hell. Yeah, so, as I said, it could have been that opening if they had focused on Victoria, and like they did, she meets the family, and then whatever, and just the ghost, and then a vampire boy comes out. Now it's just comedic stuff, because it's like, oh, you know, he's like fish out of water, because, like, you know that he's been dead for a long time, as they said. Look at the picture, it's Johnny Depp as a vampire. Well, not as a vampire yet. And it's like, you know, he was back around when we were still in colonies, and of course that makes the audience think, oh yeah, that's like in like the 1600s or whatever crap, you know. And, you know, it makes it more commonly enticing for the American audience in particular, because they're like, oh, I understand that because I did American history. Hey, I also did American history in high school. I don't care. I just did. But yeah. And then when he comes out as a vampire, it's just like, you know, it could be fun and, you know, fish out of water thing, and then the romance starts and the romance improves, and then the characters are all getting to know each other, and then it's like, hey, wait, second act time, let's actually do something that helps our business, that helps our family, because this film's about family, because fucking Vin Diesel says it's about family even though he's not even in it. So, of course, then they would progress to do the fish stuff, and then they'd find out who the real bad guy is. It's Angie. What time for a flashback? That's right. This is how he became a vampire. Now, you don't exactly need that, but at the same time, it's probably better because you're looking at it as an actual mini-story inside the big story, instead of him just being like, well, she made me into a vampire because she's actually a witch, because she actually liked me since she was a kid when we left England and then came here, and then this and then this. So it would be much better if they actually went to the visual version instead. And that would have been cool, because then you set up Angie, set up the bad guy, and you're like, okay, we know what this film is going to end up with. A battle against the witch versus the vampire. Cool, let's do that. And it's also a battle for them getting respect with the town. But then, of course, they have the ball and stuff, and it's just like, what? No, you don't need that. Scratch that crap. Let's focus it on being the family and doing all the family dynamics and having the funny stuff with him being a fish out of water vampire. And it's just terrible and boring, and it's 2 stars. 2 stars for decent acting from Johnny Depp, and I guess from everyone else. Why are they all so pale? I don't know. Like, I get it, he's a vampire, but why the fuck is everyone else look like they're a vampire too? Is it meant to be a joke on the fact that their family's British? But they're not, because they've been in the colonies for like 200 years or some shit. And it's like, oh. Also, how the hell did they exist? Like, they're just like, oh yeah, miraculously you may have had like a kid brother or something, and then like, oh yeah, we're descendant of him. It's like, there's no, like, I don't understand. Where the hell does the rest of his family come from? The Collins family, where do they come from? Like, is it one of those things of like, oh, the young Barnaby Collins is dead. We have to give his estate to his family, and they're still in like England, so we'll send them the letter and say, hey, look, everyone's dead over here. Come take your property. So they're like, cool, okay, let's do that. And because it's a fishing port and we've got business here, we can probably become rich. But of course we're not, because we're stupid. So we'll just kind of slowly disintegrate into the ground, like the building that they live in. Anyway. I would not recommend Dark Shadows. It's bad. Oh, mother of Jesus, thank God it's warm in here. So, let's talk about some more Johnny Depp films. Who do we have left? What do we have left? Why do we have... No! I don't want to do that one. Okay, we've got 3 more left right now, but then of course we still have the lucky last Lone Ranger, which we'll do later. I've come inside because it's windy and cold out there, and it's warm in here, and it's nice, you know? It's just like, wow. Warmth. So let's talk about the least warm film on this list. Okay, probably not. But still, let's talk about Mordecai. Jesus Christ. The quote, of course, go stuff a mattress with that thing. I have no enthusiasm to do this one. My review. Paul Bettany tried at least. Tried. Rip. This film has about 2 minutes of content that's actually comedy. Or at least, you know, it's supposed to be comedy. Somehow I found the scene where Mordecai and Martland, played by McGregor, because Mordecai, of course, is Johnny Depp, examine a crime scene, and it just kind of, based on just their antics and what they do and how they speak to each other, it's just funny, and I liked it and I enjoyed it, and it's the only scene in the whole entire film that I actually liked. And like it actually really well displays the kind of idiocy of Mordecai, compared to the detective, but also kind of how like he's kind of secretly brilliant, but like he's still really, really stupid. And that's all I can say about this film. A film that I wanted to stop watching within its first minute, and I was going to be like, look, I tried, I'm sorry, I tried, but I just couldn't. But then I had another hour and a half to kill, so I figured, fuck, why not? So, of course, I put myself through the torture. And it is easily Depp's worst performance. I gave it 1 star. The film. I gave Mordecai 1 star. Do you want me to explain who he is, what he does, and everything in this film? I don't want you to know anything about this film. I don't want you to watch it. It's terrible. He plays a fucking... He's not even a detective. He's like an art dealer who's broke, and he's like, oh, I need to do money stuff, so... And Paul Bettany is his, like, bodyguard, and is the one who actually takes the punches. It's like Indiana Jones if you split Indiana Jones in, like, the cool, muscular man, you know, the I'm the hero type, and then all the nerdy stuff goes to Mordecai. And it's just, like, it's boring and crap. Don't watch Mordecai. It's my only review. Don't watch it. It's terrible. 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 It's Okay, let's lighten up a bit. We've got two more good movies. Two more good movies. Edward Scissorhands. Weird-ass concept. It's a dude who was made as a robot and then built into a human, kind of. They don't really explain it too much, but they explain enough. It's still really weird. And instead of giving him human hands, they gave him scissor hands. And by they, I mean the inventor, who's played by Vincent Price in, like, his final role. This is a weird film, and I like it. Like, it's kind of a Christmas movie, but it kind of isn't. I don't know, it's weird. It's kind of like, where does snow come from? It's ice, you frackin' dude. Well, of course, it still is ice, you frackin' dude. My quote, that was the single most thrilling experience of my whole life. Unlike Mordecai. It's a really kind of weirdly romantic monster movie that is, like, only really a romance because of the tropes present in a monster movie. So, like, something like, you know, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein or whatever. Really any of those old-timey kind of monster movies, which is kind of the point. That's what this kind of film is inspired by. It's like, what if Tim Burton did a, you know, RKO bloody monster movie? Or Universal monster movie, or Hammer horror monster movie, but probably that's more modern-ish. Anyway, yeah, and it's just fun. It's a fun movie that nicely satirizes 1950s attitudes, their lifestyle, and how weird Johnny Depp is. You know, this is still while he's young, he's still learning to be an actor, but at the same time, he has some chops, but he's very kind of stale and stilted, because he's meant to be. That's his character, that's his role. He's robotic, because he's a robot, obviously. You can just tell that by looking at him, I guess. Depp is comedic, he's tragic, he's stoic. You know, given the practical effects, the excellently crafted film, and how much its narrative and moral even stands up today, it's definitely worth the watch, 100%. I mean, come on, we're all here to see, like, emo Johnny Depp, right? Like, no, even worse, emo Johnny Depp fucking MILF in the 50s when that wasn't a thing. Oh, what? I gave this film an astounding 4 out of 5 stars. Not gonna give it 5 out of 5. It's kind of, it kind of has a bit of a weird narrative with him getting caught up with the law and stuff, and it's kind of weirdly executed. So, yeah, also because the romance isn't too strong, it's really just based off the tropes, and like, oh, he's the good guy because he's different. You know, that thing. So, yeah. It's a film that does weird things. I mean, look, Winona Ryder is incredibly gorgeous, but so, you know, I guess it's worth it existing for that, but also it's kind of just a weird, nice kind of concept. Look, he does his fun stuff for the kids. He does the hedges, he does the thingy with the paper people. You know, you got for the stuff for the teenagers, you got the romance, you got the moral story, and for the adults, you got all the sex stuff. You got the satire, the 50s satire, ho, hilarious, yeah, ho, I get it. And of course, lastly, before I do my final review, just like my Show Me a Zombie video, let's talk about Ed Wood. Now, Ed Wood is a film based on the character... Do I have Ed Wood here? Yes, I do. It's right actually here. Oh, look at that. It's Ed Wood. A good Tim Burton film. I mean, also, yeah, Scissorhands is very much a good Tim Burton film. Really, like, showcases Tim Burton's style and everything. But this one's, like, more of Tim Burton's appreciation for movies and for cinema. But also for crazy-ass characters like Ed Wood, who Johnny Depp really portrays the crap out of. Like, everyone goes on about the disaster artists and, oh, wow, look at how they captured that film of The Room. Yeah, well, imagine that with someone who's actually a really bad director. Like, a terrible writer, director, and everything about it is terrible. And that, of course, is Edward D. Wood Jr., the man who made the worst films of all time, including, of course, everyone's favorite Plan 9 from Outer Space. Yeah, and this film's also, it's a love story of this person who is known as the worst director of all time, but you've also got his relationship with Bela Lugosi and how he, as a character and as a person, Ed Wood appreciated movies, and appreciated someone like Bela Lugosi in the old monster movies, and he wanted to do those monster movies from the 50s, but of course, no one would give him the money. So he made his own ways to do that. And Johnny Depp portrays the character really well. I don't know how true to life it is, because of course we'll probably never know that, but at the same time, if this was actually the kind of person Edward D. Wood Jr. is, which I'm very much saying that the film is claiming that to be true, it is very interesting, the kind of person he is. There's the cross-dressing aspect, which I find very interesting, but there's just his appreciation for movies and for people who star in these movies, for old legends and talents. And now we kind of wanted to recreate that. So as a biopic, it works really well. I think as a character study and a study of the Hollywood system as well, it works really well. Of course, they didn't end up going into more or less the tragic end of the character, of the person that it was Edward D. Wood Jr., but they, of course, tell you in that last kind of title card. Yeah, as I've said, as I say here, it's one hell of a way to showcase the horrors of making a film, and living in the industry of Hollywood as well. Even in the 50s, it's an interesting story and an interesting portrayal. It's a bit long, so it kind of has a bit of a... I don't know, maybe I was just a bit too tired on the day watching it, but I had seen it before. It's not a film that's... I'm not going to say it's not worth rewatching, but like, you don't need to rewatch it every year kind of thing. It's not something that's always going to give you that kind of triumph, like, say, Pirates of the Caribbean. Long movie, but because it's always fun, it's always entertaining. This one's like... It's a entertaining, but somber character study and study of a system and whatever. And of course you have Sarah Jessica Parker saying, "Do I really have a face like a horse?" 4 out of 5 stars for Ed Wood. Hell of a lot better than Disaster Artist. So much better in terms of everything from production to actual narrative to actually just the effect of this, instead of it being like, oh wow, we really like this cult movie. It's no, like, look at this. This is what the troubles and tribulations and everything is so well done. So yes, I'm going to shout out beef against the Disaster Artist, because Ed Wood is so much of a superior film. Excellent. And we'll get on to doing Lone Ranger, which I now have to go watch again. Cool. Shit. I mean, undoubtedly you could probably hear the TV next door. Sorry about that. Lucky Last, The Lone Ranger. As I established earlier, I haven't watched this film in a fair few years. And I can now solidify the fact that I will never watch it again. There is not a lot to say about this film, so let's talk about what I wrote down, because, let's be honest, the quicker this is done, the quicker we can all go home. My quote, of course: "The horse can fly? Don't be stupid." I'm not used to doing two people saying two different lines of dialogue, but sometimes it works, because this movie apparently thinks that one-liners are stupid, so let's make it two-liners. So, of course, the film has good production design and makeup, a nice soundtrack delivered by Hans Zimmer, very inspired by Once Upon a Time in the West, and oddly classical music, and good cinematography, which is all kind of a guarantee, given that this is, of course, a Western. On the other hand, you've got a boring narrative that we've all seen before, this is an origin story too, because apparently that's fucking popular in the 2000s, yikes. And so it's origin of the Lone Ranger, and he has to avenge his brother, who was involved in this really political mess that I don't care about, because this film is so goddamn long. So if it seems like I'm unenthusiastic right now, it's because I'm unenthusiastic. When you watch a film that goes for like I mean, how many frackin' doodle minutes did it just go for? It's a long movie. It is a very, 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 very long movie. It goes for 149 minutes, which is about just over 2.5 hours. I don't know why. I don't know why it's 2.5 hours. So yes, the narrative is something we've seen before. The story is slow and boring. The acting conveniently is good all around. Like, there's no real standouts, but it's all realistic-ish. It's decent. It's fine. But it's nothing to write home about. The comedy, because it's Johnny Depp, and it's from the people who brought you Pirates of the Caribbean, so there has to be wacky, zany comedy with Johnny Depp in it. And the comedy is kind of okay if it's like anything to do with the horse, and the rest of it's just kind of crap because it's like they only wrote it in for the horse parts just because they're like, wow, this film's really boring, let's just put in a bunch of jokes because it's also meant to be a children's movie. And I'm like, okay, sure, if a child wants to go to a Johnny Depp movie that would make them go to sleep for 2.5 hours, sure, why not? The overall action and adventure lacks stakes and adventure and fun, which is almost crucial to the existence of this film. The film is just boring and dull and way too long. So, way, way, way too long. So long that I almost fell asleep twice whilst watching it. That was just tonight. I'm not trying to say that I'm tired, but I am now. I'm, like, physically exhausted. And it's a burden, sometimes, these films. I mean, I can admit that the set pieces, the minimal amount of set pieces that they had, were good, but all the stuff in between is just so boring. Like, I don't care about these characters at all. I don't care about the overly complicated plot that really isn't that complicated because it's the same thing that you've seen before in westerns from 50 odd years ago. Hell, this movie is like a boring version of Once Upon a Time in the West, which is also a really long film, but it's a really good film. And that is such a great example of how this film fails, because that film, written and directed by Sergio Leone, arguably the greatest western of all time, easily like next to like Good, Bad, and the Ugly and some John Wayne classics and whatever. This film, Good, Bad, and the Ugly has, the Once Upon a Time in the West has exceptional music that this film definitely recalls in its music, so Hans Zimmer knows what he's doing. It has extraordinarily gorgeous visuals, which, of course, the cinematographer in this film knew what he was doing, because obviously he'd been inspired by all of that from beforehand, except that this film has really, because this, I mean, Once Upon a Time in the West is a spaghetti western, so it's going to be dirty, it's going to be grungy, so all these close-ups of people being sweaty and dirty make sense. This film hardly has any close-ups. It's mostly mid to wide shots, and that's usually pretty standard for a western, but like sometimes you can add lots of tension and character by using close-ups. They don't do this in The Lone Ranger. They do it a lot in pretty much every Sergio Leone western, and it's great, and it works, because sometimes you can use the visuals to build the character and to establish the character, whereas this film is just, it's just boring. Like, the Lone Ranger doesn't even feel heroic until the last 20 minutes when they just play that one song for 20 straight minutes. So, I mean, one of the reviews I even read on Letterboxd was saying how, like, if you just watch the last 20 minutes of this film, it's one of the greatest short films ever made. Because it's just a train robbery. But, like, it's not exactly a train robbery because they're trying to defeat the bad guys as well. Like, there are elements of this film that are definitely good. Like, they have, like, these visual callbacks. They have this and that. I don't know why they need the backstory for Tonto, but because they really put it in for the plot, it just feels weird. But like, it's literally the background of the film involves his backstory, and this is like background that isn't just the fact of what the Lone Ranger's brother had to like what he was in the middle of too. So there was like 300 different backstories in this goddamn film for the main character Tonto because he's top billed, the Lone Ranger, which the whole movie is his origin story. Plus, you've got the origin stuff from beforehand, even though they never really they never show anything. It's just tell. Um, they've got the background for the brother. They've got the background for pretty much the girlfriend, but like, or his wife, but like not really, because again, that's just like the basic background for the brother as well, for the main character. Sorry, for the Lone Ranger. And what else is there? The bad guys, both of them, get a goddamn origin story. I mean, a background and everything, and it's just, I don't care about any of these characters. This film is so boring. I don't even know what the hell to say about Johnny Depp. Like, he's like, imagine Jack Sparrow. Like, this is assuming you haven't watched this film, but you've seen Pirates of the Caribbean. Any of the first three Pirates of the Caribbean. Johnny Depp plays the character who is a character, and he has these movements and these ways, this way of saying things and this way of doing things, and even walking, and it's great. And then in this film, it's like, oh yeah, let's like not have any of that and just make you a character, but you're bland and boring as shit. Because I guess it's meant to be in the spirit of, you know, a Native American. But, I mean, do Native Americans have to be boring? I don't think so. I mean, they weren't in Dances with Wolves. Like, they were like stoic, but that's just the way that they were displayed, you know? They probably had enough character, but of course, I guess we can't make an overly cartoony, you know, Native American character. Otherwise, we might be racist. Even though you're getting a white dude to play a Native American anyway, but oh, he never takes off his face paint, and when he's a kid, he's played by a Native American, so really, he's Native American the whole time. It's just unnecessary. Like, I feel like they made this film only because of Johnny Depp. And so, yeah. I mean, I'm not offended that, like, they got a white man to play a Native American, because this movie is so boring and so forgettable that what is there to complain about? By tomorrow, I'll have forgotten that I'll have watched this film again, and by the time I edit this video, I'll be like, oh right, yeah, I totally had to watch that film again. So, yeah. Politics aside, this movie is boring as shit. That's all I can say. It definitely seems to be the kind of role that Johnny Depp should play, but it's like him so dumbed down and so lousy and so boring and straight-faced and plain and dull is the word for this whole movie. Dull and boring. And I like Armie Hammer too, like he's done some great roles since. But holy shit. This movie just makes me want to go to sleep. Yeah, so let's stop talking about it. Overall, that's it. Thanks for watching another video. This has been a part of my actor review series. I've also reviewed Dakota Johnson, Cara Delevingne, Masami Nagasawa, Aubrey Plaza, Keanu Reeves in 2 parts, and Nicolas Cage in 2 parts. And Zendaya as well, and ever so most recently, before this video, Sherry Moon Zombie. Next up we have, at least in plan, I have Lily James, so that'll be interesting. I'm trying to see if she has any bad roles outside of, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, so hopefully we can find something else. If not, we're just getting a lot of decent to good films. I don't know, I did watch that Yesterday film, so that she was in, and I watched it for her, and holy crap. So I guess that'll make it worth it in the end. Yeah, so feel free to check out that playlist. It's probably up here, or it's over there. Or the subscribe button's over there, and it's over here. I don't know. That's how it goes now. So thanks for watching. Check out one of those videos. I've got a lot of them. The Masami Nagasawa one is exceptionally popular, so like over 200 views. So go ahead and check that one out. That's my Japan special. I really like that one. I really like a lot of these, to be honest. Yeah, so okay, cool. I hope you enjoyed my torture of watching bad Johnny Depp films, and good ones, because of course it's always nice to watch some good movies. See you next time. Bye. It's great.